Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Turns out the only thing OP's mom left her was a lesson in resilience and a baseball card collection. Today in the rLounge, sometimes the real inheritance is grit. I took my mom to court after she used my college fund for herself. I, 21 female, unfortunately lost my dad suddenly 2 years ago. My dad was an alcoholic, so I didn't have a good relationship with him. He was often verbally and emotionally abusive to me as a kid, so I stopped talking to him about 2 years before he passed. His death came as a shock to me since I never thought he would pass away so young. He was 54. My dad didn't have any other children, and my parents were divorced at the time of his death, and I am an only child who has no other relatives that I'm close to. I ended up having to decide everything once my dad passed, which put a lot of stress on me since I was grieving horribly. My mom, seeing how horribly stressed and overwhelmed I was, offered to be the one to close his bank account, which I accepted since she told me there was barely any money left in his account. Besides closing his bank account, my mom didn't offer me much support since she was super bitter from the divorce. She's also a very cold person in general. Just a couple of days later, she started to complain about how I needed to move on and asking why do I care when he wasn't a good dad. She even said that I needed to care about the alive parent and not the dead one, even though I wasn't speaking to him at the time of his passing. I still had a hard time accepting his death. In the back of his mind, I always thought at some point he would be able to overcome his addiction and come back to us as a changed person. About a month after my dad's passing, my boyfriend, 27 male, but he was 24 at this time, and I were up at his apartments picking up some paintings. We were getting ready to head back when I got a call from my mom. She told me that she was in the hospital because she had a stroke. This was at the end of COVID, so only one person was allowed to see her at the time. Luckily, when I got there, she was recovering just fine. She had some trouble walking, but the doctor said she was going to be okay. My mom was in the hospital for about a week. Over the last day, I was home alone. My boyfriend had to go back to his place because he was student teaching at the time and couldn't miss a lot of school. Because of my dysfunctional family growing up, I have struggled with mental health for my whole life. That first day being home alone was one of the scariest days of my life. I was still very much grieving over my father, and my mother had almost died. I didn't have any friends in the area at the time because we had just moved there and COVID made it hard to meet people. I was having panic attacks and depressive episodes the whole night. The next day, my boyfriend saw how much I was struggling being alone. We decided that it wasn't good for me to be home alone and that I needed support as well. He wasn't able to stay with me because of school, so he decided to bring me back to his parents' place to stay until my mom was out of the hospital. He lived with his parents at the time, and they both worked from home, so I always had someone there with me while he was at school. My mom had her boyfriend visiting her every day, so she was not alone either. Over the week, my mom was in the hospital. I called and texted her every day. I was also able to go visit her one more time after that. I was unable to drive, so I had to wait for someone to take me to the hospital. Once she was better and released from the hospital, I went back home to help take care of her. Just like any stroke patient, she needed help doing basic things, and I was there for her as much as I was able to. She refused to get a temporary nurse or caregiver to help her for some reason, so it was all on me, which I was okay with. One of the side effects of having a stroke is short temper and memory problems. The doctor said to expect these things, so when she started getting angry at me for no reason, I didn't let it get to me. A couple of weeks go by and she is healing a lot and doesn't need as much help doing basic things anymore, but I noticed her short temper and anger wasn't improving. She constantly would argue with me over little things. Then one day we had a conversation about me going to my boyfriend's house while she was at the hospital. It turns out that she was holding a major grudge against me because she viewed that as me abandoning her and that I didn't do enough for her. I explained to her my side of things and talked to her about how I called her every day, visited her, and I needed support as well. She ignored my feelings and said that I was an ungrateful daughter and that I only care about the dead parent and not the alive one. I was so upset over this because I felt that my feelings did not matter to her, which is something I have always struggled with growing up with my mom. When I was a kid, whenever I was upset, a lot of the time she would tell me to get over it, or it's not a big deal. One time when I had a panic attack, she shook me really hard and yelled at me to stop. But whenever she was upset over something my dad drunkenly said to her that hurt her feelings, she would cry to me and I would comfort her however I could. I had become an adult at a very early age because of them, and her saying those hurtful things to me that day made me so upset. I ended up going back to my boyfriend's for a few weeks until it was time for me to move into the dorms at my new college. Once school came around, I was not ready. I was still badly grieving and was super anxious to the point of panic attacks once I moved into the dorms. I hadn't been in dorms before, so it was a lot to take in. I also relied on my college fund, which my dad set up when I was born to pay for me to go to college. My mom, who had all the control over my college fund, started being weird when I texted her asking when she was going to pay out the college fund for the term. I asked over and over again when she would pay it. She kept saying, "I'll get to it and don't worry about it." As the week came closer to an end, I realized that she wasn't going to pay for my college, and I was going to be stuck with a $15,000 bill and no way to pay it. So I made the hard decision to drop out of school. After dropping out and telling my mom that she missed the deadline, she told me that she was once again disappointed in me and that I wasn't allowed to move back in with her because I stress her out too much and she thinks I'm abusive. She also said that she was going to take the baseball cards that my dad collected with me, as well as some paintings he got in the divorce. My dad's baseball cards and paintings are the only physical items I was able to get from his apartment. I was absolutely devastated after she told me this, so I ended up living again at my boyfriend's parents' house after explaining the situation to them. Over the next 6 months, I attempted several times to contact my mom regarding my college fund as well to get help with paying for my dad's burial of urn, but got no answer, which still hasn't happened yet. He's in an urn at my boyfriend's parents' house at the moment. My mom also decided to take me off her insurance as soon as I was kicked out. So that was a fun surprise when I had a UTI and needed to go to the hospital. It took a while for me to process everything because over a month or two, I essentially lost my entire family and technically became homeless. If my boyfriend broke up with me at the time, I would have nowhere to go. I decided after 6 months that I was ready to go to community college. I also decided that one last time I was going to ask my mom about my college fund. When I went to ask my mom about it, over text, I was told that she had gone back to college, which I told her I was supportive of since I assumed she meant using her own money. But she went on to say she was using my college fund for herself. I was shocked and angry. My mom promised me my whole life that I would never have to worry about paying my way through college like she did. She already had a bachelor's degree and over 30 years of job experience. She also never told me that she was going to use my college fund. On top of that, she made a lot of money in her last job. From what I could guess, she made well over $100,000 a year. So there was no question on whether or not she could afford it on her own or not. I asked her, "How long have you been using my college fund?" And it turned out my mom had been using my college fund for herself since I last attended college before I had to drop out, which was 6 months ago. I was angry and ended up texting her, "How could you do this? Dad made that for me and you promised that it was mine." My mom in response texted back that I was disgusting and money hungry and that she needed it more than me. Outraged and heartbroken, I decided to get a lawyer. I wanted to get a lawyer since my college fund was set up by my dad, so I believed that I had a case. Also, my mom took all my dad's assets and I wanted to get them back. Long story short, I was able to get a lawyer and the whole process took over a year to complete. Essentially, we had to redo their divorce and the dividing of the assets as well as claiming me as the beneficiary. She fought and stalled the whole time. This could have been done in a couple of months, but she stalled it to be over a year and cost both of us a lot of money because of it. I was able to strike a deal with my lawyer to not have to pay until the matter is over. I also had to take out a loan. In the end, I ended up winning the case. We discovered the bank account that she told me had almost nothing in it actually, had around $90,000 in it. I ended up getting $45,000 of that. I also got his half of the retirement plan as well as the baseball card collection, which is worth around $50,000, and the paintings. We also learned that at some point after she kicked me out, she took a long trip to Europe using the remainder of my college fund. She had to reimburse me for that. As of today, I have not spoken or texted my mother in over 2 years. I'm waiting for the retirement agency to process all the retirement accounts to go to me, so I haven't seen any of the money other than baseball cards and the paintings. My boyfriend and I moved out of his parents' house into an apartment. He's a full-time teacher now, and I'm still working my way through college. Luckily, financial aid has helped me out a lot. We have plans on getting married one day once things settle down a bit. And right now, I'm just trying to figure out where my place is in the world and how I can move forward after everything. Thanks for reading my story. Hopefully I have an update in the future. The community has one quick response. Such good news at the end. Glad you and your boyfriend are still in it together and growing along. I hope his love can help you heal because I feel a lot of healing will be happening, and that's a good thing. Good to know the justice system worked in your favor and made sure you got some of what your dad created and left for you. Yikes, OP. Losing your dad, dodging emotional landmines with your mom, and navigating the legal labyrinth. That's rough. I'm sorry finding out the bank account wasn't empty was like discovering your parents' failed marriage wasn't the only thing that could surprise you, and then finding out your mom used your college fund for a European vacation. Oof. But you've managed to come out stronger. You collected more than just baseball cards. You've gathered resilience and grit. Here's hoping your next chapter involves less courtroom drama and more happy endings. Keep going, as you've earned every bit of presence and joy that's coming your way. What do you make of this? And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.